Welcome back to episode 15 of the Schmozone podcast. I'm Dave Schmulenson, aka the Schmo.
And I'm Helen Yee Sports.
We're here in Jacksonville on the rooftop of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. We just witnessed UFC 249. We got a big UFC fight night tomorrow night, and then another fight card on Saturday night. Special edition of the Schmozone podcast today.
Indeed, from the rooftop, like you mentioned, overlooking the river, but it's been quite a journey to get here starting on Wednesday. So should we backtrack a little bit?
We should backtrack a little bit because I think because of the situation and the pandemic that we're living in, travel is definitely been altered. Might as well talk about that. Our airplane had maybe 30, 35 people on it to get here in the first place. I know you're a foodie. What was the food situation like?
Well, rather than someone kind of walking down the aisles to give you, the chips, whatever, basically as you're coming onto the plane, they already hand you these, quote, goodie bags with water. And in our case, they were like mini graham crackers inside. So they don't come during the flight, but they give you a bag beforehand.
So there's nobody giving us drinks. They give us a water bottle.
Yeah.
There's no service for snacks. You can't buy food. So, they're just taking all the extra precautionary measures.
Yes, and I'm trying to think what other differences, aside from the airport being empty. I remember in the Vegas McCarran Airport, all the slot machines, everything was blocked out. And yeah, just not many people there.
Not many people at all. We flew here, got here to the hotel. We took all these different tests. We took the naval swab right there. They pricked our fingers for the antibodies. They checked our temperatures. And Helen, you took that nose swab or that nose stick like a champion.
Well, unfortunately, they had to go up both nostrils. And some people probably even say, like, when I talk, it sounds like I can't breathe that well. Point proven, I think, since one of the nostrils, I guess it wasn't opening up all the way or something. I mean, I never broke my nose or anything and never got a nose job. Don't worry. I know it looks awkward, but yeah, so they did it through both. But I was impressed because for your case, they just went, up your nose and out like it was nothing and you were done.
Well, we posted that on Instagram, both of us, but I put on the Schmo glasses, and when I'm in character, I feel like I just have to do it, go for it. I don't think, and I just went for it, and luckily for me, they just stuck it right up in there. She fished pretty hard for 2 seconds, and that was it. Wasn't a big of a deal as everyone's making it out to be, though. Can't you say?
But the poking of the finger part,
I didn't like that. I would rather get my finger poked. I'd rather get that thing stuck up my nostril than my finger poked. It just tickled when they're taking the blood out. But hey, we tested negative.
Yes, which is most important for health tests.
Yeah, I would think that for most tests, when it comes to health related and you get the negative, it's always a good thing, right?
It's always a positive. Get it?
Yes. So, been here for 5-6 days now. We've been pretty much quarantined in this hotel,
wearing face masks, getting daily temperature checks.
Yes, and let's just bring out that noise that everyone's been making outside of being here. A lot of the MMA journalists, a lot of media journalists, all in all, have commented on basically the documentations that we had to sign. And I'd go right into it because, I'm not going to sign anything that I don't look over,
Well, you were the one that, fun fact for all you Schmo fans and Dave Schmulenson fans, weren't you studying to be a lawyer at one point?
I took the LSAT, almost went to law school. My brother's an attorney. I will look over everything diligently. I won't sign anything I don't understand. And what they put in the contract is absolutely necessary. It's like we're here at will, right? Basically, we sign two different things. It says that if we contract this virus, we can't sue the UFC. It's not the UFC's fault if we get COVID-19. Absolutely the case. Like, we're here at our own will. If we get it, this is a risk we're willing to take. And the second thing is, we can't say anything that's going to disparage their name, that's untruthful. Like, why would we go out of our way to make up stuff that just is going to look poorly on everything that we're covering? And better yet, none of our content is there to poke anything negative. It's always positive to begin with. So it doesn't even affect that for us. But on the other end of it, it's like, look, we can give our opinions. There's nothing we can't say. It just has to be truthful, and rightfully so.
Now, for moving on to the day of the weigh-ins, well, first, virtual media day, that's a big difference. So if you've been following along, unlike other fight weeks in the past, you may not have seen many interviews from us with the fighters.
Yeah, they had a virtual media day. We like to do things in person. That's why...
We're people, people.
People. That's why I brought out the Schmo Shield. I brought that up on the last podcast, and I have to make a correction. Tom Gillen is the mastermind. He's the engineer. That's the Click Tech business partner, the founding father business partner of my father, Harold K. Schmulenson. He's the one who designed the face shield. He's the one who put it out there, and I didn't communicate that right. Want to give Tom the rightful credit. He engineered the plastic, the shield, the prototype. That's what the Schmo's been interviewing in.
And it looks great. You did quite a few good interviews with that Schmo shield.
And today's guests, Herb Dean, Rashad Holloway. Interviewed Herb Dean wearing the Schmo shield. You got Rashad Holloway, the striking coach of Tony Ferguson. So a loaded podcast today.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
And the one big takeaway leading up to the fight then that I have is, like, we're in a 13,000 seat arena, and there is literally 10 to 12 of us media people in there, and staff wise, I don't know, maybe around 30 to 40. What do you think?
Yeah. As far as from the arena crew members to the
production, EMS, people, the Joe Rogans, the John Anik, the commentators.
Yeah, well, speaking of our experience being at that live fight with no audience, I noticed, and speaking of the word commentators, like Carla Esparza, Greg Hardy, a big difference fighting, I guess, with no fans is that the fighters now can hear Daniel Cormier kind of talking about their fights during it, and then they were able to make those necessary adjustments, and they won their fight.
And even where we were sitting and watching the fights, and we're going to be sitting there for the Wednesday's fight and Saturday's fight too, 11 days here in Jacksonville, 11 days here at the hotel. That's why we're trying to get some sun right here on the rooftop, doing this podcast, switching up, do it a little bit differently. We could hear everything. And we were I think it's an arena football stadium. So imagine the 50-yard line, the bowl where the handicap seats would be right before you get to the lower level. That's where we watched the fight. Great vantage point, by the way, because you could look and see all the action inside the octagon and then kind of be almost eye level, look up and see the screen so you can get the best of both worlds.
Yes, but I did love how, for example, with the production, when the co-main event came out and then the main event came out, as far as with the music, with everything, the lights, I mean, it was still as if, even Bruce Buffer, it was still as if there was 13,000 people there, right? Like the energy-wise.
Energy was there, and then a lot of these fighters come off like a Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter. This is kind of just taking another step to that type of atmosphere. So some of these guys are used to fighting in front of very limited crowds, and they got paid. And that's what, and we got live sports back. I mean, it's historic. That's why we want to be here. This is a global pandemic. The sports world's been put on hold. Never thought we would ever see this in our lifetimes. And we're part of history bringing this thing back to the people. And I'm just fortunate that we're here, we're doing it. 1 down, 2 more to go. And we're here to talk about it.
Yes. Well, speaking of talking about it, like I mentioned, UFC 249, a lot of great fights, very stacked fight card. But one of them in the co-main event, because I know the last episode you spoke to Henry Cejudo. Congratulations to him and also on his retirement. But Dominic Cruz had some words to say about Keith Peterson.
Yes, he did. But let's talk about Henry Cejudo and the retirement real quick because, we have a good relationship with him. We saw him last week. Kind of knew in the back of my mind, he might. I didn't think this would be his last fight retiring. No. I knew he didn't want to fight past the age of 34, and he's 33 right now. I thought maybe he's got 1 or 2 more fights left in him. But hey, thinking of the circumstances that we're in right now, leaving on the way he wants to leave, he's friends with a guy like Daniel Cormier, wrestling backgrounds, and DC hasn't been able to ride out in the sunset the exact way he wants. He's sitting here waiting for that trilogy fight with Stipe, get that 1 more fight. Henry didn't want a situation like that.
Exactly. And having a beautiful girlfriend waiting at home.
Who flew down here, and I think they're in Fort Lauderdale partying it up right now. Rightfully so. Live it up, King Henry Triple C. But no, yeah. So that's why what you brought up, Keith Peterson, that was a big reason why I tried to interview Herb Dean during the Zoom conference style a couple weeks back. He could have been on an earlier show, but Herb's the type of guy that likes to do things in person, just like us. And we ran into him last night getting Thai food here and wanted to bring him on to the podcast, rightfully so. This guy is he's a legend. When it comes to one of the faces of MMA, especially refereeing MMA, you think of Herb Dean.
Oh, absolutely. And he brought great insight into everything that's happening as well as this fight week, literally, fight week with the 3 fights.
Yeah, and he was the referee for the main event for Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. So I want to bring up first, before we play Herb Dean, your clip with Rashad Holloway, who is the striking coach of Tony Ferguson. And let's see what he had to say.
Should we roll it?
Let's roll the clip.
It's been about 3 days since the fight. What was your analysis of his performance?
Tony was not as sharp sometimes as we usually see, but Tony was active. He was busy. Justin Gaethje just fought a hell of a fight. He fought a hell of a fight. He was just able to capitalize on some of the mistakes Tony made. Tony, like I said, Tony fought Tony's fight. Tony fought Tony's fight in some significance, but at the same time, there were a lot of things that he didn't do, and I think that was due to, Justin Gaethje put on a good performance, and just is what it is some nights.
But what would you have liked to see Tony have done more?
I'm a boxing guy, so I don't really go into a lot of the other stuff. It's a lot of stuff that I don't know, so I stick to what I know. Our whole game plan was to stay on the outside, strike, stay long, moving to our right at all times. Tony did that at times. He didn't do it as much as I wanted him to at times, but Tony's Tony. Tony likes to stay engaged. Tony likes to bang, and that's what makes Tony Tony at the same time. He did a lot of that. I think I would have liked to see Tony use his feet a little bit more. Tony did some good teeps in the beginning of the fight. Yeah, like when he stayed long, he did very well. Did very well at keeping Justin off balance. A lot of good leg kicks. Of course, we all want to see Tony on the ground more. With Gaethje, more submissions, more jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, Gaethje makes it hard. You look at all Gaethje's fights. Gaethje doesn't let anyone take him on the ground. He does a good job at that. Takedown defense is pretty good, and it was Gaethje's night.
But did anything in particular from Gaethje's performance surprise you at all?
I want to say his patience. Gaethje fought the same way that we playing. Nothing with Gaethje changed as far as like his style of fighting. Like my old coach Freddie Roach used to say, fighters aren't fighters don't make mistakes. Fighters are creatures of habit. Like like fighters do the same thing over and over because it's just who they are. It's their habits. And to me, Gaethje fought the same exact way. He was just a little more patient. Like when he hurt Tony, he didn't jump on him. Didn't jump on him right away, didn't get reckless like you saw him with Poirier, like you saw him with Eddie Alvarez. He stayed patient, he stayed calm. He let Tony bring the fight to him more instead of him rushing and attacking so much. And I think it was also kudos to his corner for being able to keep him calm and just keep the game plan. Like even you would see times like when I watched the fight on video, Gaethje wanted to kind of get a little and his coach would be like, hey, knock it off. And this is how we lost. And Gaethje would calm down, yes or no so. And I think that's a big thing. Like you got to really respect your corner and really be willing to listen to him because your corner are the eyes outside of the ring. You can't see everything you're doing in that ring. You can't see. You just reacting. Your corner can tell you, look, this is working, that's not working. But you got to be receptive to it. You know what I mean? And I think Gaethje just did a good job at that, and so did his corner.
Now, we know that Tony was transported to the hospital immediately after the fight. How's he feeling today? Have you checked up on him?
He's good. I mean, like any other fighter the day after. Like boxing, we used to be sore, but MMA, you all are. It's a whole nother kind of sore. You all are sore from your legs, your ribs, your arms, your elbows. Like any other fight, like he's sore. He's real sore. I mean, that's about it.
But did he sustain anything else or just the broken orbital bone?
No, he's got some lacerations on his face that required a little bit of stitches, a little sore on the leg maybe, his arms, but that's really about it.
So what did you think of the main event now that we heard from Tony Ferguson's boxing coach?
Yeah, no, what I love about that is the Schmo interviewed Rashad Holloway with the face shield on before the fight. You interviewed him after the fight, and some of the things that he had brought up to me about expectations for Justin Gaethje, we saw in the fight. And, man, Justin Gaethje, his striking, his boxing skills, and then you look at Tony, and you're like, Tony didn't do much grappling. He didn't do the jiu-jitsu. You didn't see many elbows from him. But I think a lot of that has to do with the respect and the level of respect because of Justin Gaethje's wrestling background, who didn't even attempt a takedown here. But just he can have that in the back of his mind, anyone fighting Justin Gaethje, because they know on the ground Justin Gaethje is a formidable opponent.
Yes, and for the longer interview, because it was a very long interview, you could check it out on my YouTube.
Yeah, and my takeaway from that, Helen Yee Sports YouTube, is that the next fight for Tony Ferguson should be Conor McGregor. It seems like the camp of Tony Ferguson knows that too.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. I mean, it feels like that fight, like there's just so much going on in the lightweight division, especially like the top five, right? And yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away or say too much, but Rashad definitely addresses Conor and his tweets.
You have to check that out. And then the interview that I'm about to play right here with Herb Dean, full interview here. Herb Dean weighs in on Dominic Cruz's comments about referee Keith Peterson, talks about all the stuff that went down. Like I asked him if he would have been refereeing last month in April if UFC was able to pull off the fight card in Tachi Palace, and just pick his brain about some relevant things going on right now. Always great to catch up with Herb Dean, and let's play that interview. This is the Schmo with the pro, with the legendary MMA referee Herb Dean here at the Jacksonville Riverfront. How we doing?
Excellent, brother. So glad that to be out here talking to you, man.
Appreciate it. Long time no see. We just had a great UFC 249 card. You did a heck of a job as usual. We just saw Justin Gaethje against Tony Ferguson. From your vantage point, when did Tony Ferguson seem to start slowing down in that fight?
Well, Tony Ferguson's, one of the things about him is his incredible heart and his pressure. And so even if he's having tough rounds, you never count him out because he's always putting pressure, But towards the end of towards close to the stoppage was, that's about when it was time. I don't want to go into particular about everything I saw, but it met the criteria to stop the fight. He was going to keep going. He has a lot of heart, but Gaethje was there with a lot of he was able to hurt him most of the time when he touched him, and Tony, I think his chances of winning were pretty small at that point. If you look at the cards, if you look at the scorecard, his chances of winning were pretty small. And what our job is, we're not here to let someone continue to take punishment for the entertainment or the fight continue for entertainment. If the fight is no longer competitive, we want to get people out of there so they're not taking unnecessary damage.
And nobody can question that stoppage. And what was Tony Ferguson yelling in between rounds to Judge Gaethje early on? We can hear him screaming, keep going. Where is that?
Well, yeah, that's his energy, man. It's one of the great things about him. He brings that energy. Let's go. No matter what. He's like, okay, come on, let's do it. Let's go. And, but nothing disrespectful, just bringing that energy like, hey, we're here to fight. Every round we're going to fight. Let's get out here and do it, you know?
In the co-main event, it was Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Your colleague Keith Peterson was calling that fight. Dominic Cruz, after he was stopped in the second round, he had some harsh words for Keith Peterson, talking about cigarettes and alcohol on his breath. What'd you make of that stoppage and that accusation from Dominic Cruz?
Well, fighters, I think that I excuse anything really that fighters say or do in the moment of a loss, because people want to compete so bad, and to compete at this level, it takes more than anyone ever knows. So I've had fighters angry with me, or a fighter push me in a moment, I'll walk away, and then when I see him later on, everything's all right. It's really rough with Dominic, because Dominic is such a he's so good at what he does. He's so good as a fighter, as a technical fighter. He's changed the direction of the sport in a lot of ways. And as an analyst, he's very technical. And he's one of the guys that I've actually talked to him about some of the critiques he's had of even my job and other people's job, because when he does have a critique, he has a reason for it. And, so that's what I'm always looking for. I don't want someone who just says, you did a bad job. I want someone who's going to say, well, this is the reason I don't like what happened. And so, he's someone I always want to hear from in that situation, for those reasons. As far as the accusation, I didn't smell alcohol on Keith Peterson. Keith Peterson was around us all day, and I'll tell you this: if any of us suspect that someone's been drinking the day of a fight, there's no way that any official is going to let that pass. We're going to call someone out. This is a very serious job we do here.
100%. And would you have stopped the fight right then and there in the second round? Was it a right stoppage in your point of view?
Well, you know something? It's a tough situation, and Dominic Cruz, he wanted to keep fighting, and he as they all should, and he's a competitor, and also he's a very smart and eloquent person when it comes to breaking down a situation. So I mean, I heard the things he said. The thing about the stoppage though was, I would just say it's a very tough situation, because Dominic got hurt, and Dominic was you gotta, when someone gets hurt as a referee, you're going to, your job is to manage the threat that's coming after them while they're trying to recover and get their faculties about and be able to do the right things. And it was quite a while, and there was a lot of shots coming while he was trying to get it together. Keith Peterson made a decision based on what he saw, and I think it fits within the standards of a stoppage. The situation changed in that split second, and that's a bad situation for anyone. So is that the situation we want? Of course not. But looking at it, can I see anything that he did wrong that I would have done different? I don't think so. And I definitely look, because we look at every stoppage, ones that other people make, ones that I make, because we're always trying to figure out a way to do it better. But at this point, I can't see anything that he could have done differently. It's just unfortunate that the situation changed in a split second, and we always want to get the right result.
Absolutely. Now, last month, the boss man, Dana White, wanted to bring the UFC to Tachi Palace. We wanted to get the fights last month. It obviously didn't happen. Disney told them to stand down. The governor and senators of California They have strict guidelines in place. Would you have been a referee at Tachi Palace if the UFC was to have happened last month?
Well, I'm glad that I didn't have to make a decision on whether I was going to, it's a lot of things that go, this is our sport. We want to continue to do it as much as we can. At the same time, there's the spirit of of us all trying to come together to combat this situation that we're in, and at the same time, we all want to be team players and stand together to get through this time. So I definitely don't want to do anything that's irresponsible and not trying to get through this.
So when you got the call for refereeing here in Jacksonville, was it no question? Did you have anything that you had to weigh and decide, or did you know in your heart that you would be here?
Well, I was going to be here because Jacksonville in Florida, they've decided that this is the direction we're going to go in. I'm not the one who's managing coronavirus. I just do I take the advice and move on. I don't claim to be smart enough to figure that out. If the government says, hey, come together and try to shelter in place or do whatever, that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, when it's being managed by the athletic commission, and there's a lot of smart people working on keeping us safe here. So I'm here to referee fights.
Yes, you are. And speaking of refereeing fights, how does the environment over at ViStar vary from a Contender Series? What are the similarities and differences?
Well, it's more like a Contender Series or like the Ultimate Fighter, because there's no one really there cheering. At Contender Series, there's more people there cheering. Their families are there. There's coaches. There's a small bit of an audience. The Ultimate Fighter, there's only the teams, the fight teams that they're on, as far as they're cheering. And here, there's even less than that. So some of it, I think that there's a lapse in the, you kind of miss that energy of a crowd. I mean, for me, myself, when I'm there and there's like a whole arena full of people screaming at the top of their lungs, there's a certain level of energy there. Also, it makes my job easier. I know when those big fights, I might have trouble hearing the bell. I'm really talking to the timekeeper. Man, make sure you hit those things loud. Make sure you hit. I want to definitely know when the time is up. The other thing, though, is that I've always thought that the Ultimate Fighter felt more personal. The fights felt more personal. You can hear the movement. You can hear the canvas, the footsteps on the canvas. You can hear the breathing, the pace of the breathing. You can hear every noise. You can really feel. It seems more real. It seems more like a personal fight. You actually hear when someone's spirit is starting to slow down and starting to break. So there's a difference, and I think the people might enjoy seeing the fights that way also.
And Herb, how are you enjoying your time here in Jacksonville? The Schmo saw you out at dinner last night at a good Thai restaurant. How are you enjoying yourself here?
I like to get out. I enjoy cooking at home. It's been good for me, but a little bit of environment is nice. That Thai restaurant has a great environment, so I like some environment, so I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm.
And what can you tell all the people out there, all the fight fans there, to encourage positivity for this world that we live in moving forward?
I think the thing that I've been seeing is this is the first time that I've seen everybody on the same, not everyone on the same page, but so many people on the same page in the world of trying to confront an issue, and I think it's a good thing out of that. I think I do feel good about that. I've just been hanging out, just doing stuff around the house, and doing a lot of things that with my busy schedule always on the road that haven't been done, and so it feels good. I've been doing a lot of projects that really needed to be addressed, and I feel good about it. I've also spent a lot more time on social media, and it's been fun getting to interact with people. I've been doing just app Cameo where people can book shout outs. Yes. And it's been pretty cool. It's like I never thought that when I started refereeing that all around the world, on the other side of the world, people would reach out to me, and just me talking to them would be able to bring a little bit of joy and whatnot. I've got to be a part of like people having their first child, someone defeating cancer, and they're reaching out to me to say hi and encourage that person. So it's actually felt really good. It's a blessing. It feels good. You're
an influential guy. A lot of people want to hear from you, and you've probably never had a time off like this in your professional career, so why not?
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. I've been enjoying it. Yeah.
He's Herb Dean. He's a legend. I'm the Schmo here in Jacksonville. We're out. Let's talk about something to wrap everything up at this podcast that's near and dear to my heart. We did watch episodes 7 and 8 of the Last Dance documentary, and I'm just going to go out and say this. The takeaway I have for everybody is not only was Michael Jordan the greatest basketball player of all time, which I've said numerous times, but he's the greatest competitor of all time. Everything he took to heart. Every single game was a new challenge to him. Every single season was a new challenge to him. Everything he made a personal mission. And I think when you watch those episodes, you will get that sense, get that taste. And just, I've said this before, the superb amount of excellence he achieved in his sport, in his time, outweighs what we've seen in other athletes in their given sports during their given eras.
As always about the GOAT, very well said. And remember, wasn't he getting teary-eyed?
He's getting teary-eyed. I loved when they showed him the iPad with Gary Payton, the glove, greatest defensive point guard of all time. Schmo's interviewed him before. It was great, and we've gone back and forth. And I just loved how he burst out laughing when the glove said, yeah, we had him and everything like that. But Michael Jordan, it was his first season, like full season, playing basketball after his father was murdered.
I know. Look, Michael Jordan, GOAT emoji, enough said.
I was crying when they showed him in the locker room after he won the 4th championship, not giving up the ball, being alone there, and even at half court, like they're bum rushing him and wouldn't give up the ball.
Will there ever be another Michael Jordan? Rhetorical question.
We'll leave it a rhetorical question. Now, Helen, what do you look forward the most for the next 5 days we have left here in Jacksonville? Which fight, whether it's tomorrow night for UFC Fight Night or the following UFC Fight Night Saturday night, what fight are you looking forward to the most?
Well, of course, I'm looking forward to the fights tomorrow, but because we briefly saw Walt Harris, I'm looking forward to his return against Alistair Overeem.
Huge fight. And then Wednesday night's fight, looking forward to that. The most Anthony Lionheart-Smith, Glover Teixeira. I think he's ranked 8 right now. Lionheart's ranked 4.
OSP against Ben
Rothwell, the veteran. I mean, there are so many good fights. Put your money where your mouth is. Go to mybookie.ag. Promo code Schmozone. They will match up to 50% of what you put in. So let's say you put in $500 worth of bets. They'll give you an actual $250 on top of that to play with. Go make some bets. What other sports are on?
Exactly. Have some fun out there. Grab a pizza.
We are poolside. I hear DC on the phone. Daniel Cormier chomping at the bit. It's happy hour here. The sun's coming down. You drinking a mimosa tonight?
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. And then the other fight, the action-packed fight, I'm looking forward to tomorrow too. I don't want to forget this. Alexander the Great against Drew Dober. Two chiseled men that have chips on their shoulders that are going to entertain. So if you're looking for a fight that's going to be entertaining as hell, it's going to be that fight.
Yeah, there's so many great fights. I love it. I love that. Also, it's like every few days, right, there's another fight card. So, yeah.
Got to make sure Ben Rothwell wears his Schmo glasses if he beats OSP.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how OSP is going to look. Yes. In their heavyweight. I mean, when I walked past him, I was like, how the hell? Like, was he a light heavyweight, right? He's like, he fits the heavyweight very well.
That's right. And if you're watching this on YouTube, write in the comment section any questions you want to ask these guys in the post fights. We all have mics. That's the one precaution that the UFC's been doing. They've been great with this social distancing. Everyone's wearing masks around the hotel, 6 feet apart. We all have our own mics at the post fights too, so ask away, put it in there. we'll see what we can do.
Exactly. Type your questions below, and should we say it?
I'm Dave Schmulenson. She's the pro.
Helen Yee Sports.
Episode 15. We're out.
1, 2, 3, 4.